Hey, my name is Zach Perry. I'm going to show you how to change the oil in your car or truck. There are a couple reasons that I like to do it. One, I know the job is done right. You never know with mechanics in different shops how they kind of do it. Two, it's fun. It's always fun to learn a practical skill, something you can use. And then the third reason is you might be able to impress uh, your girlfriend's dad. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hey guys, so I want to show you how to change your oil. I just have a couple things you need. So I have some ramps here. That's an alternative to jacking your car up. You really don't need to jack your car up for this because it's easier this way. A set of wheel chocks, you could use a brick or a piece of wood, a rock, really anything works just to put behind your back tires. I have a set of tools. All you really need is a ratchet and your sockets here. So it's really just hand tools, nothing crazy there. And then I have some oil and my oil filter. And I'll go into how I got that here in a second. It's all in the owner's manual. Step over here, I've got my drain pan and then a filter, or not a filter, a funnel that I'm going to use to put our oil and dispose of that safely. And I've got some jack stands just for double protection because you never know. So the first thing that you need to do is reach into your glove box and get your owner's manual. Usually this is going to have all the information related to how much oil you need to put in your car, what kind of oil. If you don't have your owner's manual, what you can do is go to whatever auto parts store and look in the book or ask the person there. And you're going to need to use the book or talk to the person there anyway to find the kind of oil filter. But here you can see, here's the kind of oil that I need. And if you get lazy, there's a giant badge right here that'll tell you everything you need to know. It'll also tell you the intervals of when you need to, how often you need to change your oil. And then just go ahead and put that back because it's valuable information that you definitely don't want to lose. Most people are going to need to raise their car or truck somehow. The exceptions being if your dad paid to have your truck lifted or you're a member of the Lollipop Guild. So here I'm going to use ramps. You can use ramps, you can use a jack. I've seen people even put one side on the curb, just whatever you can do to get the clearance to get to that oil pan. So I went ahead and put our jack stand right here. Now all you have to do is slide it up against the metal nice and snug. So here we go. You can see that's not going anywhere if our ramps fail. And all you have to do is the other side and you're good to go. So I'm also going to use these wheel chocks. You can use like a piece of wood or a rock, anything just to keep this back wheel from moving and rolling down those ramps. So we're underneath the truck now, and what we're going to do is see if we can find our oil pan. Now the oil pan is usually black, and there are a lot of parts that are moving around here. The oil pan is usually, oh there it is, it's usually black, and it's going to have a bolt somewhere around the, the black pan, and that's going to be what you're going to take off to let the oil out. So note that when the oil comes out, it's going to drain down this way. So don't put your oil pan directly beneath it. You're going to want to put it out some. Once you have the right size socket for your bolt, just break that to the left. Make sure it's not the right because you don't want to damage your oil pan. That's a pricey fix. And then just ratchet it until it's loose and you can get it off with your hand. If you try to ratchet it all the way, you run the risk of dropping that bolt into the oil, and it's never fun rummaging around in there. But once you have it off, just put it off to the side and then wait for the oil to drain all the way. So it might take a couple minutes for the oil to drain out of the pan completely, and that's normal. But the next thing I like to do is just put the bolt back on once it's done being drained. Just with my hand at first, just to go ahead and loosen it, or sorry, tighten it up. And then I like to clean up my oil pan a little bit, just so I know if I didn't tighten it just well enough,
that I'm leaking oil, so I just like to clean it up, and it makes it easier the next couple days just as I check to make sure I'm not leaking anything. And once I have it hand tightened, I like to go ahead and grab my socket and ratchet, and then just see if I can turn it about a quarter turn, just to make sure it's tight. Now you don't want to go too tight with this. Like I said, you could run the risk of damaging your oil pan. That's a super pricey fix. So I'm just going to go ahead and wipe this up and get on to the next thing. So now that you've got the oil drain, the next thing you need to do is locate your oil filter. So there's my oil filter right down there, the big blue thing. In every car or truck, they're in a different place, but as long as you know the general shape, you can find it. I've also seen different colors like white and orange. You can see here that it's pretty tight on there, so I actually ended up using a pair of gloves to take them off. And if you don't have a pair of gloves, what you can do is they make different kinds of oil filter wrenches. It's pretty impossible for me to use one just because of the amount of clearance I have. My truck was made in the 90s, and this is before people realized things can be made economically. So I just have to use my hands like a savage. So your old oil filter is still going to have a bunch of oil in it, so just place that upside down into your dirty oil pan, and then take your new filter and then just rub a little bit of that clean oil onto the rubber seal there, and that's going to make it seal better and make it easier to take off next time, which seem like conflicting ideas, and that's because they are. That's just the way I was taught, so I'm going to keep doing it. And the next thing, all you have to do is put that oil filter, your new oil filter, back on. You can see I'm using no gloves here just because I like to be able to feel the thread to put it on. And if you're having trouble, you can end up using gloves. Like here, I go back just so I can tighten it a little better. But once you have it tight, you can move on to the next thing. Alright, so you've got the new filter on. So the only thing you need to do is add oil back into your engine. It's going to be right here. The yellow tab in the back there is actually the dipstick. A lot of people think that's how you put oil in, but that's how you check the oil level. You're just going to pour it right into that hole. So as you can see here, I'm going to miss and get a bunch of oil on the top of my engine and also all over the driveway. And that's not really a big deal. If engine oil gets onto your driveway, it's just going to be there forever. So it's no sweat. So once you have the proper amount of oil put in, just screw it back on, and then you can go ahead and back off the ramps. So the last thing you need to do is dispose of your oil properly. It's a hazardous material, so it's important that it's recycled and dealt with properly. So I'm going to use a funnel to pour it into an old 5-quart container for oil. You can use a milk carton that's emptied out, a gallon, something like that. And it's easier just to go ahead and take your time and not spill any oil. So as you can see, I'm going to check here in a moment and just make sure I haven't spilled any, because it's kind of a hassle if you do, because you have to clean it back up. So just take your time, and like I said, I'm spilling no oil. No oil is being spilt in this video. 0%. But once you have your oil taken care of and in your container, you can just take it to your local mechanic or auto store, and they can get rid of it for free for you. So they can recycle it, and then just pat yourself on the back, because you just changed the oil in your car or truck.